You take a bite, you swallow, and suddenly, you are fighting for your life. The air stops. The panic hits. A piece of steak just bypassed your stomach and went straight for your lungs. You are choking. And here is the craziest part about that exact moment. Your dog watching you panic? He cannot do this. The pigeon outside your window cannot do it. A chimpanzee, our closest living relative, physically incapable of it. You are the only animal on Earth that can die just by eating lunch. We are the apex predators of the planet. We have split the atom, we have walked on the moon, and we have conquered every environment on the globe. Yet a healthy human being can be entirely neutralized by a rogue mozzarella stick. To understand why your body possesses this fatal design flaw, you have to look at the plumbing. Look at your dog again. When a dog eats, or a cat, or a horse, their airway and their food pathway are entirely separate systems, or they interlock safely. They basically have a dedicated tube for breathing and a dedicated tube for eating. When a dog swallows a massive, unchewed chunk of literal street garbage, it bypasses the airway entirely. The breathing tube remains safe and unobstructed. But you do not have that luxury. You are built differently, and that difference is trying to kill you. In a human adult, the air you breathe and the food you eat share the exact same highway for a crucial few inches. It is a space in your throat called the pharynx. At the bottom of this shared tunnel, the road suddenly forks. One path goes to your esophagus and down into your stomach. The other path goes straight to your trachea and into your lungs. And guarding the entrance to your lungs is a tiny, flimsy flap of cartilage called the epiglottis. Every single time you swallow a sip of water or a piece of bread, this little trapdoor has to fold down perfectly and cover your airway so the food slides past it. It is a biological game of Russian roulette playing out in your neck. You swallow roughly 600 times a day. That is 600 times your brain and muscles have to perfectly time the closing of a trapdoor, or you simply stop breathing. But here is where the story gets strange. Because you were not actually born this way. If you look at a newborn human baby, their throat anatomy looks almost identical to a chimpanzee or a dog. The larynx, which houses your vocal cords, sits extremely high up in a baby's throat. It actually locks directly into the nasal cavity. This structural setup creates two completely separate lanes for traffic. One lane is purely for air, and one lane is purely for milk. This is exactly why a human infant can nurse and breathe at the exact same time without drowning. They are completely immune to the specific type of choking that haunts human adults. For the first few months of your life, you are eating with the safety mechanisms of a standard, well-designed mammal. You were safe. And then, somewhere around 3 to 6 months of age, your body started doing something completely terrifying. Your larynx began to drop. It detached from the safe high ground and slowly sank lower and lower into your throat, dragging the base of your tongue down with it. As it sank, it created a massive, empty cavern above the vocal cords. It forced the food and air pathways to cross. Your body actively dismantled a perfectly safe, crash-tested mammalian eating system and replaced it with a permanent choking hazard. Evolution does not do things by accident. Evolution is ruthless and highly practical. If a biological change gets a creature killed before it can reproduce, that genetic trait is wiped out of the gene pool immediately. Choking is a terrible survival strategy. Thousands of people die from it every single year. So whatever our ancient ancestors gained by dropping that larynx and risking death at every meal, it had to be worth it. It had to be the greatest biological superpower in the history of the planet to justify the cost. And it was. That massive, empty space that opened up in your throat when your larynx dropped. It is a resonance chamber. Think of an acoustic guitar. If you stretch strings tightly across a flat wooden board and pluck them, you get a weak, thin, buzzing sound. But if you stretch those same strings over a large, hollow, wooden box, you get a loud, rich, complex sound. Your vocal cords are the strings. That dangerous, empty cavern in your throat is the hollow wooden box. Because the larynx sits so low in human adults, we have this massive vertical tube between our vocal cords and our mouth. And this exact biological space is where the magic of humanity happens. This empty space gives your tongue an incredible amount of room to move around. You can pull your tongue back, push it forward, raise it, lower it, and curve it, all inside this newly created cavern. And every time your tongue changes the shape of that space, it changes the sound of the air passing through it. That is how you create vowels. The letter A, the letter E, the letter O. These sounds are physically impossible to produce without a dropped larynx and a massive resonance chamber. A chimpanzee has vocal cords. A chimpanzee can make noise. But a chimpanzee cannot change the shape of a large pharyngeal chamber because it does not have one. Its larynx is too high. So a chimp can scream, and grunt, and hoot, but it can never articulate the complex, highly distinct sounds required for true language. For a long time, scientists wondered exactly when this dangerous evolutionary gamble took place. If you look at the fossil record, you cannot simply look for a fossilized larynx. It is soft tissue. It rots away entirely. But you can look at the bones at the base of the skull. By examining the curve of the basic cranium in ancient human ancestors, anthropologists can estimate exactly where the larynx was positioned in the throat. When they reconstructed the throat of a Neanderthal and other early hominids, they found the exact same choking hazard: the dropped larynx, the shared pathway, the resonance chamber. This means that hundreds of thousands of years ago, early humans were sitting around fires, communicating with complex sounds, and occasionally dying because a piece of mammoth meat got caught in their newly evolved vocal tract. It is the ultimate evolutionary trade-off. We traded a safe airway for the ability to share information. Think about what that actually means for our species and our survival. A solitary animal does not need a complex resonance chamber. A dog can survive just fine knowing how to bark, growl, and whine to signal basic emotions or threats. But early humans were pathetic physical specimens compared to the predators around them. We do not have sharp claws. We do not have thick armor-like fur. We are not particularly fast, and our night vision is terrible. Our only survival strategy was each other. We had to cooperate. We had to coordinate complex hunts, warn each other of invisible dangers, and pass down detailed knowledge from one generation to the next. To do that efficiently, we needed a communication system faster and more precise than simple grunts or pointing. We needed consonants and vowels. We needed specific words. We needed to be able to say, "Do not eat those red berries by the river because they will kill you, but the blue ones are safe." Or, "The mammoth herd is moving toward the western ridge and we need to cut them off at the pass." That level of detail, that extreme specificity of information, requires an immense variety of distinct sounds. And producing that variety of sounds requires a highly mobile tongue operating inside a large pharyngeal chamber. Evolution looked at the risk of a few individuals choking to death on a piece of fruit and decided it was a perfectly acceptable loss. The survival rate of the overall group, armed with the power of spoken language, would far outweigh the handful of individuals lost to a badly swallowed piece of meat. You are a conversational casualty waiting to happen, all for the greater good of human progress. The mechanism is a biological compromise. When you speak, you are pushing air up from your lungs, through the vocal cords, and into that dangerous shared space. Your brain is coordinating dozens of tiny muscles in your throat, jaw, tongue, and lips at lightning speed. You are shaping acoustic waves into precise syllables at a rate of up to 6 or 7 syllables per second. It is a symphony of biological engineering happening right on top of the trapdoor that keeps you alive. And you do this entirely mindlessly. You sit at a restaurant, chewing a piece of steak, laughing, breathing, and talking, seamlessly switching your throat between a food disposal chute and a high-fidelity acoustic instrument. The brain automatically halts the breathing reflex for a fraction of a second every time you swallow, forcing the epiglottis down, opening the esophagus, and then instantly reversing the process so you can continue your sentence. It is a breathtakingly delicate operation. It is only when the timing is off by a fraction of a millisecond, when you inhale to laugh at a joke just as the food reaches the trapdoor, that the illusion of safety completely shatters. It makes you look at every meal a little differently. You are operating heavy biological machinery every time you swallow a simple glass of water. And yet, this structural flaw is the very foundation of human civilization. Everything we have ever built, every city that exists, every piece of technology, every work of art, every scientific discovery exists because we could talk to each other. We could share abstract ideas. We could collaborate across thousands of miles and thousands of years. The ability to articulate complex thoughts is the dividing line between humans and every other species on this planet. And the physical real estate required for that exact ability just happens to be located in the absolute worst possible place for eating. We did not conquer the world because we were the strongest, or the fastest, or the most resilient. We conquered the world because we were the most communicative. Our dominance is built entirely on our ability to share information, to tell stories, to build a collective memory that outlasts any single human life. And all of it hinges on a bizarre anatomical compromise made hundreds of thousands of years ago in the dark. The next time you are talking with a friend over a meal, realize what is actually happening in your throat. Every word you speak, every story you tell, And every conversation you have is made possible by a biological trapdoor. Talking is not just something humans do. It is an evolutionary gamble we won. If we could not choke, we could not speak.